We'll leave that for now. We have battery power. Oh, I know what we're missing. There's always something. We want to get this. We don't want to forget our journey. It's always sailboat. And where's that very kind of alive planet? Doesn't look so alive. Well, that's the idea. It's sort of half alive, half alive planet. Yeah. Okay. And so that was very fast. Oh, good. I see Johanna has popped in already.
I
Hi,
have.
Johanna. How
I'm
are you
watching from
doing?
afar. Can you hear me?
Very well.
Okay, very good. Hi, everyone.
Excellent. Okay. Well, you know what? Would you be okay with starting earlier with you, and then I can let you go earlier? How do you
Well,
feel
you're
about that?
welcome to do that.
Mhm.
I don't know if there's a way to share my screen with what I've got on this side.
Well, for the moment, can you just hold on to what you have? I don't want to overcomplicate things, and I have got here a little late, and so I may not be able to show what you want right now. But what you can do
Okay.
is um, you could email me um, what you want to show, and I can download it myself. But
Okay.
would it be, or you can try to share it through screen share on Toria on the video conference system you're in right now. And is there at the bottom settings that allow you to share your screen?
No, I don't see that. That's why I was asking.
Okay, then to keep it really simple, the most important thing is that we have your brain, and
Okay.
and if the students will be able to see you, we don't even need to see you. If you can share your video, great. If not, I will be showing an image from last week's
Ah,
class, so students will see you. But
okay.
are you able to share your video just now, just to test?
It's asked me to give a link. It says it's video share video link. I'm not quite
Okay,
sure.
sharing your video as a like as in your face. Just share your camera, your webcam.
Okay. Oh,
Let's see what
that
happens.
video.
Okay, let me just
Ah,
see. If not, uh, I will.
it says that it's on. It's very odd. Give me 1 second here. There
But
we
the
go.
fact that we
You
have you,
probably you probably see me now? Yes?
uh, yes. Hold on a second. I'm just going to double check something. So I will start. Okay. Just to let everybody know, welcome. We have begun the class. Okay. And as we begin the class today, we're doing a little bit of still setting up, but that's okay. We have our guest. She's connected. I will explain everything in a moment as to who she is and why she's so important today. But first, I just want to make sure that Johanna de Boer, is that the correct pronunciation of the last name, de Boer?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
De Boer? Okay, because I know with the spelling sometimes I get it wrong, but uh, I want to make sure she's connected and that her video is connected too. So let's get that first. So here we go. Let me just bring in everything on, and we'll do it this way. We'll go the main. Whoops. We'll go main. We'll go over here, here, and we'll go over here. Extended. Good. So right now, what we're looking at is behind me is the recording from last week's International Women's Day event that Johanna organized in this room with about five, six, even seven guests. Got
7.
some
7
seven,
people. Yes. Yeah, it
seven.
was 7. Yep.
Okay. So on the big board right now is that you see her sitting um, in the left hand side of the screen, right in where That is the couch over there, and then where Jamie is right now is me sitting there, and then that is one of the guests, Nikita Williams, and so I just want to make sure Johanna's connected, and then I'll explain all about today's class, which is about the power of resilience and women in global leadership in our societies. And it's interesting, Johanna, because as I look at the class right now today, at least who's here in person, um, except for Madiha, who's back there, who's assisting Maureen, who's now our official coordinator. It's all men. It's all young men. So
Yes.
this is very good. That would be exactly what I'd like to see is men, while we have Johanna tell all about last week's event, as well as her career, all the work that she's doing as an entrepreneur, as an educator. And then she has a pretty remarkable personal story to tell as well that all comes together in this idea of courage and resilience and what women, not men, today, guys, what women can teach us about these two qualities and particularly resilience. When you hear Johanna's story a little bit later, I think you're going to be moved by what she has faced and overcome and how it's brought her to where she is today. So, okay, let me just make sure we can see her and then we're going to start officially. So,
Right. So I'm
first,
sharing my camera on my side, and I've already
yep,
shared a file with you. Sent it over
okay,
to your email. I don't know if
okay,
you received the PDF on it.
okay, just
Otherwise,
hold on.
if I can share my screen on this side, that would be great.
Not a problem. Let me just see what's happening over here. I'm going to be running things off of here today. Good. Okay, good. So there's Johanna.
Hi, everyone.
Lovely. I'm going to want to keep her full screen, but I may not because what happens is on YouTube, it just defaults to full screen like that the whole way. Anyways, I'm going to go back and forth. Nobody needs to worry about that. It's just me thinking out loud. If I don't think the tech out loud, it's overwhelming. That's why I talk out loud up here, not because I'm nuts, although probably I am a little bit. This, what we're doing is so technically demanding on me in terms of getting this all to work that if I don't get it out of my head and go through the steps and talk them out, I get tripped up. Okay, so anyways, yeah, good. We've got the connection there, and then if I want to just keep it, so we want that view, and I think what we'll do for now is we'll keep that view there, and we can see Johanna in the corner, and
Oh,
everybody at the far end on YouTube
it's
will
so
also
nice that
see
my
you.
face is smaller. That's good. It was
Good.
slightly terrifying, Lon.
Great. Okay. For now, we're good. We have and a little bit later, I will check to see what you have to share with us. But for the moment, Johanna, I'd like to start, and I'd like to make sure that we can stick to our time in terms of letting you go by about possibly as early as 11:10 or 11 o'clock. We'll see. Okay. But it's great that you joined before 10:30 because we can start earlier.
Yeah, of course.
Good.
No worries.
Yeah. So then let me just say briefly that I hope soon in the coming years there will be no need for an International Women's Day. There shouldn't be, because the fact is, to state the obvious, women have been as essential as men in the human story. But you would not know that if you looked at human history and the history of societies and civilization. What we would see would be largely men telling the story of how powerful they were. That has changed, thankfully. And we might say that the epic story in the human story on planet Earth is the story of how women have won for themselves the place that they always should have had right next to men in the beginning of our story, and that's called human rights. And there is a great world historian, Theodore Zeldin, who wrote a book called The Intimate History of Humanity, where he talked about how there's one change that has happened over the last 400 years all across the planet that cannot be reversed, no matter how much the fanatics try, whether they are political fanatics, religious fanatics, any other kind of fanatic who want to take us backwards to a time when women were not as significant. And they can't do that anymore. The power that women have won for themselves is irreversible in human societies and actually is going to be defining increasingly our future, our destiny, the impact that women will have on business, on politics, on education, on everything. So, in order for you to be well prepared as an emerging global leader, it's really important that you understand that women are going to have a very important, as important a role as men will have in our destiny. And if you look backwards, you wouldn't see that. But if you look forwards, you will see that. That's a long, broad, big way of introducing somebody like Johanna and the topic today, which is the role that women play in positions of leadership in our societies today, and what exactly do they bring to the table? Perhaps that men can't. And Johanna de Boer, who I have worked closely with now for a little while through the Rotary Club, where she has a senior position with them as a coordinator and a governor, I believe. She has been organizing International Women's Day events here in the classroom through Rotary. And I've had the pleasure and the privilege of working closely with her and getting to know her a little bit more each time we organize these events. Last week's event on International Women's Day, which she organized, she brought together seven women of distinction who have started their own initiatives, who are bringing things into our societies today through their initiatives that are important for you to understand and that can teach us something about these two fundamental qualities that I mentioned earlier: courage and resilience. I could say imagination too, but we don't have time to get into everything today. I wanted to highlight particularly one quality, actually, of those three I've mentioned before about imagination, courage, and perseverance being so important, and vision being so important in leadership. This idea of resilience is something that we sometimes talk about in terms of a four-letter word that is a good one. It's called grit, and it's one of my favorite words. You might, being a male, we all have all men here, including, I think, online as well. Burhan is our, or Nathan and Burhan. So it's all men today. This is an excellent opportunity. You might associate the word grit with the sports network, let's say TSN, like, this hockey player, basketball player, football player, what grit they had, what stamina, what strength they had to be able to do what they do, to overcome the odds, the mental and physical strength. And today, we still say that, but of course, we have seen an incredible growth of women's sports as well now. Just next door to me in High Park, there is a young woman who has become, she was drafted by the Minnesota team of the Women's Hockey League. And my wife and I will soon be going to see the women's professional hockey team play at Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto, and that's where I used to go and sell programs, and I worked there, and I used to follow the Toronto Maple Leafs. But these are women, and these are women who have tremendous grit, physical and mental grit. Well, Johanna, as she describes and introduces herself as well, and she describes what we did here in this room last week with the guests that we had. I'm going to let her tell us all about that, about the guests and what they can help us understand about leadership. I asked her here at the podium last week as we were just finishing up, is it okay if we talk about your personal story? And she said, sure. And I said, I think the students need to hear this. At the end of everything that she is going to tell us, I'm going to make sure that she tells us about her personal story, because I think that it's a kind of climax to everything she will be telling us about the guests that she brought together. She's a personification, a walking example of all those others that she will describe. But then it's not just the mental resilience and grit that she has. Let her tell you about the physical side of what she overcame. So I hope that you walk away from today's class and understand that an essential quality of leadership is what we can learn from women. Please try to remember that as you hear this today. I think this will be pretty powerful in what you will hear from Johanna. She's going to stay with us until around 11:15, and then we're going to have some interaction together. We'll let her go, and the men here, and maybe some women will join us. But the men here are going to try and think through from their different perspectives, African perspective, Indian perspective, Turkish perspective, right here, slightly elderly perspective, wise perspective. Okay, I will join with Jamie. Okay, we're the older
Yeah.
ones in the class. Okay, so Johanna, I'm really going to now conclude, and I will give the class over to you. And for the moment, please just make do with your words and your face. I won't be able to show any slides or anything for a little bit as I get things figured out. But take it away.
Okay, certainly. Thanks so much, Lon. My goodness, what an introduction. Hi, everyone. So I wish I had my slides to show you because I did prepare them. It's all good though.
Let me work
Um,
on it. Okay, I'm going to
yeah,
work
yeah,
on it.
yeah.
Okay.
You work on it. So I'll go through them just in case Lon does share them. So simply, very, very simply, I'm Johanna de Boer. You may have seen me around campus because I do spend some time on campus around you. There, obviously at Durham College, and of course at the university. I'm actually a Rotarian at large. So right now, I'm actually attached into Whitby Sunrise Rotary, which is where we had filtered in through the Rotary Global Classroom on Friday evening, where we had an event, and it was actually for Women's Day. So, as a Rotarian at large, what that really means is that I've been part of Bowmanville Rotary for about 3 years, and then I came over to Whitby Sunrise. I am just on the cusp of venturing into an international innovation group, which is called I Squared, and it's actually part of the Commonwealth, so it's actually out of England, and it is actually part of the Peace Corps as well, and attached into, of course, all the aspects that come into international Rotary, because where Whitby Sunrise starts right now is more of like a local group, obviously, to Durham. That reports into a district, which is the District 7070, which is where I gathered all these people for that event on Friday. And that, of course, filters into a larger entity, which is Rotary International. So it is a global leadership and business group that people can get involved in. And I know that they're actually trying to put in a different I wouldn't say a different, but certainly a Rotary group called Rotaract, certainly at the colleges. And so I know that there is an interest in putting it in at Durham College. So that being said, I did simply want to say that, I am this Rotarian, but on the other side of that, I am also a CEO. I am a fractional executive. I am an AI data matter expert. I am a professor. I'm a business owner. I'm a mentor. So I have this entire very robust and very big kind of life that happens in my regular everyday life. I've actually been part of AI and big data for about 25 years now. And so when I teach at Ontario Tech, for instance, when I teach statistics or if I teach big data, I've developed all the courses for both McMaster and for Trent University in artificial intelligence and in big data. These are the types of things that I do. And I go into businesses, whether they be Fortune 500 companies or even something simple like a startup. I wouldn't say simple, but simpler as a fractional executive in terms of data or anything like that. That is what I do professionally. So as you can imagine, my work life is very robust that way. But more, I'd say more notably and more importantly, my roles as a mother, as a daughter, as a sister and a wife are the most important things to me. Those will reflect more my personal side. It is simply who I am, and I don't necessarily think about it too much. Not until I have to give presentations like this, which always seem, I wouldn't say overwhelming, but it seems kind of surreal sometimes when I talk about myself because it just seems very large, but in reality, it doesn't seem that large. It's just very, very different. So that being said, let's take you back to Friday. So Friday evening, we all gathered. I think it was 6 o'clock, if we're not mistaken.
Yep.
We did an hour of fellowship, and then we started our presentations at 7 o'clock. And so this was really inspired after International Women's Day. And one thing I want to say about what I organized and the reason why I organized this is because every March 8th, we have this day called International Women's Day. And I think there's an International Men's Day too, but we don't seem to celebrate it
Okay.
as much.
That's right. There is an International Men's
There
Day.
is, there
Yeah.
is, but
Okay.
for whatever
Yeah.
reason, it's not celebrated. I don't
Yeah.
quite understand. And
Yeah.
like you, Lon, I'm not quite sure why we have to celebrate International Women's Day all the time.
Yeah.
I would like
Right.
to get to a point where we don't have to celebrate it, to feel that we need to carve out this niche for ourselves and showcase ourselves. Because
Yeah.
for me, it's really about, I wouldn't say bridging the gap, but certainly bringing the two together. For me, it should be all the same so that we shouldn't ever have to feel that we need to singular our size ourselves out, I guess, to bring awareness and things to that. So that being said, on March 8th, when we did meet, I had brought together uh, 6 people in the district, and then there was one person outside of that. And if you see the slide that Lon is presenting potentially of what we actually when we did have our speakers, there was one guy in there, but that's only because our female counterpart from the Commonwealth Group International, she was not able to attend because it was like 2 a.m. in the morning. So we had someone else that I knew here in the Toronto area that was actually able to speak for her. Um, so the idea behind all of this, and something that I want to get across too, and what we talk about in leadership and in global leadership itself, the reason why I did this, and it's always starting with a vision, right? Um, this year was really about bringing that inclusivity together. Um, and what I found in talking to people, at least in Rotary, is that not everyone had an idea of what projects we actually did in the district. So the district itself, you have to understand. So District 7070 has something crazy like 42 Rotary groups. And each group, for instance, like Rotary Sunrise,
Yes.
so Rotary Sunrise has something like 95 members. Bowmanville has like 80. So you can imagine if you multiply that across the district, there's quite a few people involved. And so knowing what everybody is working on or not working on or who's doing what is it gets lost. It gets lost in the dissonance and the noise of all the things that go on with Rotary. So with
Johanna,
this
can I
was
just stop you for 2 seconds?
yeah,
Just a technical
yeah,
thing. I wanna make sure. Where did you send the, um, presentation? Did you send it to my email?
I did, yes.
Okay, let me just double check because I did look at my email for a moment and it wasn't there. And it may
Uh-oh.
be that it was taking some time to come in.
Yeah,
So if
sure.
if not, I'll just do a quick refresh and then and see. but I'm not seeing it here at the moment. Okay, so I'll wait
Okay.
for it. It may just be taking some time. It could be in
Okay.
junk mail, but then I don't want to get too, sidetracked with the tech in front of all of you. Let's stay with Johanna and let her explain. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
One thing I would like to ask though, for the
Yes.
moment, just to help, is that we have our notes going over there right now. You will see right now the smart board. You should see it at your end. Do you see it there, Johanna? The
Yeah.
Okay, so and we'll see it. I would like to um, have. There is one female here in the room, and she's at the back and she's assisting. Mediha, would it be possible for you to take some? I would like to just introduce somebody to you who's um, been such a valuable um, classmate and also assistant with the global class. And she's now walking over to the smart
Yes.
board, and
I
you will
see
see
her.
here.
Yeah.
Um, Maureen Khan and Mediha Khan are our secret weapons in the global classroom. And Maureen, Mediha's sister, has now officially been hired at last as the coordinator for the global class. It's taken many years to get the college to finally do this, but she's starting now and she's still working today. And so Mediha has come in to help in place of Maureen, but the two of them have done some really important work at the World Expo in Dubai, in the United Arab Emirates, last 2 years ago, or 2 years, right? And so the two of them, and particularly Maureen, are going to be leading the initiative with all of you, hopefully, for our big presentation at World Expo in Osaka, Japan in 2025. So just I want to thank Mediha for coming in and stepping in for her sister, and she's going to make some notes, okay, as we move along. And so I would like, do you know how to move the slide in the corner? Yeah, it's the in the lower right hand corner. You'll see a little. You can use your finger to move it. Yeah, you could do that too. Could you just write down for now vision? And Johanna, as you're going along, we're going to add some notes to the smart board that are important about leadership
Perfect.
and that will set us up for our interaction afterwards. Okay.
Exactly.
So,
And it looks like we
uh,
can share the screen too. Can you see my screen at this point?
oh, yes,
There you
we
go.
can
I'll
see
just
your
do it from the
screen.
side. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good. That
Good.
solves
So
the
go
problem.
ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm not talking to a vacuum. You're just not watching my head. That's always
Great.
good.
Then we have your slides.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Then you have my slides. This is good. We're all
you have
good.
everything. Go ahead.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
let's keep going. And if you hear
Exactly.
anything that you think is significant, just go ahead and write it down. Okay. Thank you. So,
Yes.
Johanna, please continue.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry about that, guys. So now you're looking at the slide, the second slide of the deck, and I'll share that with Lon afterwards if you'd like. And so you see the six speakers that we did have, which are all female. And then you see my friend Hans down there, which is on the very, very bottom, that was filling in for one of the people called Allison Cox. So just very briefly, what these projects were all about, because again, these women were doing these tremendous projects. Paige Fernandez was doing mind body movements, which was all about mental health. She is part of my, obviously, part of the committee that I have on International Women's Day that I typically have, but she is also part of my committee because I also chair for the district the mental health committee as well. And so I speak on that quite notably in the district itself over the last year and a half. And so Paige was actually talking about the importance of mental health and leading us through a seminar for that. Janet Thornstein was talking about girls' kits, and you can see that. And what Janet does is she actually goes into Dominican, and to the Dominican Republic, obviously. And then what she does is she creates reusable menstrual products that girls can use, because if girls don't use them in the Dominican and these poorer areas, they stop going to school and they stop getting the education. And of course, that has a lot of downstream impact. Jennifer Boyd, that you can see on the far right hand side, was, or not was, has done a Brushomania project. And what she does, she goes around to schools and she offers free tooth care and toothbrushes and all of this education around oral health care, obviously for kids and going into the schools. And she works with dentists and uh, all the other Rotary groups as well as they help to supply some of the funds to do that. Debbie Morgan, who you see in the red with the Red Scarf Project, she actually knits. I mean, and if I tell you people knit, I mean, I'm not talking like just gentle knitting. These people are wicked smart, so fast. I can't even do it, even if I tried.
Power
But
knitters.
they,
Power knitters.
oh,
Yeah, yeah,
power knitters, like it's crazy, crazy. I can't even begin to tell you crazy.
yeah.
And they sit there with a lot of red yarn every day. Every time I see them, they're sitting there knitting. And she knits scarves for people that are affected by HIV, of course, for any of the people that do have the disease, unfortunately, or the people that are the care and support workers for that. And what we do is we actually tie them around trees during the winter months. There's a certain point of year that we actually tie them around trees, and then people that want to take a scarf or can use them actually can take one. Otherwise, we donate them to the local shelters themselves. And so Debbie has she does that year round. Lisa Davenport does a fill a purse campaign within Rotary, and what it is, it's gently used purses that people donate, and then they have products that they can get that any kind of item that you'd see in a woman's purse. It might be chapstick, it might be lipstick, it might be I don't know, tissues or wipes or menstrual products, whatever it might be that would commonly be found in a woman's purse would be brought forward, and then of course they would comprise these all together, and then bring them in to be pushed out into the community. And anything from, like, let's say a high school to a women's shelter to whatever it might be. I mean, there's all these different areas that women presumably could use something like this. And so the Fill a Purse campaign is really about that. The next person we had speaking was Nikita Williams, and she
Mhm.
was talking, and she may still come to your classroom if I'm not mistaken, Alon.
I'm hoping to bring Nikita. Well,
Awesome. You're
they're all good as guests. But I
right.
think
Yeah.
Nikita in particular because she's not only younger in some ways, more closer to your age, but she's also very connected to young women in terms of empowering
Right.
girls and young
Right.
women, which was really interesting. So, anyways, go ahead, Johanna.
Yeah, yeah. So she talked about empowering girls, and of course, this program that she does offer through Toastmasters and, of course, Rotary. And so, Nikita is an absolute powerhouse. And yes, she is closer to your
Mm,
age than I am. So I totally get it. So I'm with you, Lon, on that one. Not a problem. I've been around for a while. It's all good. And then our final speaker was Hans Bethia, and he was talking about the Commonwealth resounds. And so again, this is an international Rotary group I was mentioning before as well. The group that I'm actually going towards in the next year, and what they are doing is they've actually done a peace song that was actually pushed out to the peace conference
yeah.
that was held by Rotary International in England, literally like last month or the month before. I think it was in January that it was held. Um, and they're going around to other Commonwealth countries and asking that people take the song and actually redo that song in the manner or the method of which they choose. So, as you look at these speakers, I mean, yes, it was an hour and a half of talking. I'm not going to get into the nuances of every single project that was there. They all start with a vision, much the same way as I put together the speaker series itself with a vision. They too had a vision. And that's really, really important as we think about leadership, right? Because when we talk about leaders, we have to think about, what's the impact that we're going to make, and what is the impact? What do we want it to be known for in our lives? I mean, I would say, I'd venture to say that if the difference between leadership and management,
Mm,
um,
yeah, it's a
there's a
vision.
huge difference. It's a vision,
Yeah,
really, it is,
yeah.
because most people can manage things, of course, maybe with a little bit of help, whatever it might be in terms of what you do, but being a true leader is really having that visionary aspect itself.
We've
So when you
talked a lot about this, Johanna, so
I'm
I'm hoping
sure.
this will resonate with all of you, and particularly, Richie and Ryan have both taken on projects for their assignments that require some real vision. So listen
Oh, good.
close. This is good. Yeah,
Good.
keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So when you think about global leadership and the class that you're in right now and everything that you're doing, look at it as the ability to drive positive change on a worldwide scale. It is really, really important as we talk about our current leaders today, and certainly the people like yourselves that are coming up into classrooms. What really sparks that? And I was thinking about all these different aspects that go into that. It's really about your integrity, your vision, your empathy, your delegation, your accountability, your adaptability, your communication, the continuous learning that goes into it is really, really important. And remember that it doesn't, I mean, you're in a global leadership class, of course, and you
Mhm.
might think, well, how do I inspire, the entire world? Start small. Because if you start too big, you might not necessarily get your point across. But if you start small and you build and you build and you build, that is that is how you build things from a leader capability and from a leadership point of view. So this is the last slide I want to leave with you, of course. And like I said, Lon, I'm happy to pass this along for you if you'd like.
No, this is really helpful, and when you're
Yeah,
done, we'll give students a chance to really interact with you and the ideas, and then we'll be able to let you go, and then we're going to continue the discussion based on the notes and what you've helped us to see. But before you go, there will be your story. Okay, we need to hear
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Okay, keep
Sure,
going. Yeah.
sure. No, I mean that's all I had for the slides themselves. Um, so I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has. Or Lon, if you want to jump into the other part, it's totally up to you.
Well, thank you for listening to my direction a little bit by minimizing slides. I think you're one of the few guests in this class I've had over the years that actually did bring fewer slides and was prepared very early on to start interacting. So many guests I've had over the years, no matter what I tell them, default in the end, when they show up to, here's the PowerPoint. We're gonna go
Yeah.
40 minutes with the PowerPoint, and they're not nimble enough always to be able to kinda change and understand that students don't want more PowerPoints. They want
No.
critical information, but they want to interact, and learn experientially. So thanks, Johanna, for doing that. Um, for the moment, let's stop and think about what Johanna just told us that has begun to resonate with you. Remember, there's something at the end that will speak to resilience that I think is a very critical quality. The grit, the mental and physical grit that she has and that she can teach us a lot about. But in terms of what she said so far, and based on the presentations that were given last week in International Women's Day, and even just as you look at her and listen to her as our guest in today's global leadership class, what's starting to stick with you? Ryan, do you want to come to the couch so we can take your spot there or next to Richie so we can see you? And then, yeah, good. Take the microphone. Go ahead, Ryan, and just turn it on and talk away.
It just resonated with me when she said start small on projects. 'Cause I think that's probably a good tip from like somebody on the inside. Because like usually like when we start big projects, we're used to almost just getting in the ring and swinging like you're throwing hydrogen bombs right from the start. But
Yeah.
it's a good idea to kind of pace yourself and kind of have that run up as you go along. So I appreciated that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think about even my professional work as well, even in terms of doing a project. And I'm going to relate this as well on to something that we're going to talk about even later. Even a concert pianist. So even if you're like, so let's say performing at Carnegie Hall and you have this massive piece of amount of music, and if you've ever gone to a symphony, you hear like, oh my gosh, like how are they remembering these things? They're not using any music. They take something like so huge, like literally that I can like last like hours long. They break it apart into smaller bits, and at the end, then they put it back all together again, because there's no way that you can play it all at once, all at the same time. There's no possible way you can do that or even remember it. Similarly, when you're starting something, yeah, start small, because if you start big, you have more of a risk for it something to go wrong. And that happens
Mm.
not only, of course, in music, but then, of course, in other things like projects and things like that, right? Where, and I even relate to my own professional life where sometimes you have millions of dollars that you're responsible for. If something goes wrong and that all kind of dissipates, it's not a good, that's not a good day. What you want to do is start something small. You want to have those the smaller things happen, let's say, rather than the larger ones happening. That's why you take it small. So
I
yeah,
wanted to also
good
help
point.
Ryan. I just want to help and then come back to Ryan for a second. Remember when I talk about local, global and local at the same time? That word does have other dimensions too. It's not just about thinking globally and acting locally. It's also about this idea that when you're executing something, you need to make it manageable. When you start doing, that's the local small part. So local can also just mean manageable, like it's around you. But then the global part is you need to be aware as you create something here, small, manageable, that it needs to connect to the rest of the world, that it needs to be taking in what's happening in the rest of the world because we're all connected now. So that's partly as well what I mean by local too is manageability, local manageability, not just thinking about the local community. Finally, I just like Medea to be able to put on the board the first thing about Johanna. It's going to emerge a little bit later about her story. She was a concert pianist. Okay, so this is not just a kind of a metaphor that she's picked off a tree to help you understand. She's the real deal. Okay. Second, if I'm correct, I believe Ryan also has a lot of experience boxing. As a matter of fact, I think, if I'm right, that he was training to fight professionally. So let's just get some things clear here about grit. We have a woman telling us about what she's done and others have done, and wait till you hear her story. And now we have a young man bringing in where we often think grit comes from, the boxing ring. We're going to learn from Johanna. Grit has a lot more to do with life than just throwing blows. Okay. But anyway, so Johanna, yeah, young boxer here and musician. And Ryan, do you want to follow up with this at all?
I was just gonna say that I kind of like what you said there about it kind of tied together 2 points that I was connecting. The point that you should start small in chunks that Johanna just mentioned, but I was also thinking that that's probably generally also more of a guideline because there are some people who do make it big right out of the gate, and then there's some people who do take longer than others. So I kind of like
Sure.
what you said about combining two ideas and kind of just focusing on what is manageable because you're making it more relative to you and you're just kind of letting whatever is going to happen with the project happen, right? So almost like nature take its course in a way.
Well, let Johanna, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, even I mean, it's an interesting point. I think it gives the appearance, and then certainly life is about perspective. So I think that some of the people that you think have made it big, like right out of the gates, haven't just made it out of the gates. There's
Hmm.
been a lot of pre-work that you just haven't seen. It may seem like they have a shorter runway, and maybe they've gotten to from point A to point Z, so to speak, much quicker, and that's certainly true. It might not have taken like a huge amount of time, relatively speaking, but they had to start somewhere. And I think that's the point that I'm really trying to get across. It's not you have to start somewhere, and it has to start with something like, let's say, even a vision or a feeling that you have that you want to start with, not necessarily that you want to start with, like just being a global superstar like tomorrow.
Exactly.
Usually that has to start somewhere. But yeah, absolutely. I know. I totally agree.
There's a great,
Thank
great
you.
word to put or term Medea is start with a feeling that you have.
Hmm.
That's really nice. I can speak from experience on that. But think about what she's saying, and maybe to put a little skin in the game right now, as we go around, today with the in-person group, Johanna, because they're the critical
Yeah.
group here. We interact. What sort of feeling do you have inside of you about doing something, starting something that's going to have an impact and that's important for others? Start with the feeling, right? And I think that could be helpful. But let's keep going, Ryan. I want to just move it around a little bit. Who else would like to? Before I bring the microphone over, I just want to make sure you have a chance to engage with Johanna while she's here with us, and then we will take these things up ourselves. But Richie, do you want to at least begin with yeah, whatever you think is significant for you in what Johanna has begun to touch on? Go ahead.
Okay, so for myself, I think the story of like starting small and making big changes reminds me of someone from back in Kenya. She's called Wangari Maathai, the Nobel Prize winner for environment. And the story that I was told about her, she started protecting local parks in Kenya,
Yes.
the capital. And at the time, the president was against her protest because they wanted to put up some buildings or some urban development in those parks, and she fought really hard to stop that urban development. And yeah, I think she started small and ended up like getting a Nobel Peace Prize for her
Yes.
actions. So I think that the story that reminds me, her like her talk today reminded me of that story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great example, Richie. And I would like to try something technically, but it may take us to a place where we might have a technical breakdown, which is to get you to find a picture of her or information and send it to the big board. But well, let's try. Okay, let's try. And then if it breaks down, then we'll deal with it. Okay. So I want to
Okay.
show you something for a second. Okay, Richie, that you can do. This is called here it is, screen share.
Okay.
Now, if you go to your laptop right now and you enter this information, it should work. You need to enter the IP address in your search bar, and
Okay.
then you will be asked for a code. See if it works, okay? And then we can actually share from the live in-person group stuff from their computers, and we can see this remarkable person. So, Johanna,
Yeah.
do you know the story of this Kenyan activist woman who won
No.
the Peace Prize eventually?
No. No. I want to see it. Would definitely love to look her up once I
Uh,
once I leave the classroom. That'd be great.
Yeah, we'll try to bring her in for sure. So great example. Why don't you hand the microphone to Grayson? Okay, and you can see Grayson always writes some good papers on world history and global leaders. So he listens really well. What do you think would be something as you listen to her speak that is sort of registering with you, Grayson, about leadership? Want to think for a little bit?
Yeah.
You think for a little bit, okay? It's okay. Think. I'm going to come back, okay? Now, you can bring any perspective you like, but the fact is, you come from Turkey.
Mhm.
You've mentioned this before. I don't know if this matters at this point, but what's registering with you and why?
So there's a struggle going on in Turkey about women rights, some sort of women rights and laws, and yeah, we
Mhm.
call it Istanbul Law, I think, something like that. But it was about women rights and if, law against violence against women. and it didn't pass. So there was so many struggles and protests on the streets by the various women across the country, but nobody got awarded even a peace prize from international lobby and local lobby, to be honest, for their bravery.
The bravery.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, going against police and yeah, making protests on the streets like busy streets,
Yes.
it requires bravery.
So the courage is registering with you.
But it's not rewarded, and it's eventually died down because there was no support, right?
There's no.
There was no support, right? So
sup-
eventually it died down.
And there's no residual noise here in Canada. I haven't heard anything about it. I haven't actively sought it out, but I haven't heard anything about it. So it's interesting that you bring it up, but it's not a unique story in a certain sense. Women around the world have been fighting for equal rights, and certainly for laws and legalities that will help protect them.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's almost terrifying. I find that terrifying. I have never grown up with that experience, so I can't imagine having to pave that way. That is huge. But thank
There's a-
you very much for sharing that.
There's thanks, Barack. There's a very tragic and well-known story of the courage of a woman activist in the beginning of the 20th century, and there are many that Theodore Zeldin in Intimate History of Humanity talks about in terms of the long fight for rights that have been so significant. There was a woman who went to a race, a horse race, in England. I can't remember her name, but it was a very prestigious event, and the Queen, the King were there at the time. And she wanted to bring attention to the plight of women, and she was one of the early suffragettes, women who fought for the right to vote. You can believe it. It wasn't that long ago the women couldn't vote. I mean, to bring attention to this, she went to the rail that encircled the racetrack, and there were many people inside the circle watching the horses come around. And then there were many people in the stands watching the horses come in to the final. When the horses came down the track towards the finish line, she jumped over the railing and threw herself in front of the horses. And she was trampled to death. You might say, that's crazy. But I think you might say something like, talk about courage. The attention that she received for that, for having sacrificed herself in that way, is not much different from the grocer in Tunis a few years ago, in Tunisia, who essentially immolated himself, burned himself to death as a way to protest the injustice against him and others in his community. And that then led to what's called the Arab Spring movement that spread all across the Middle East and led to the confrontation that the Egyptians had with their long-standing dictator, Hosni Mubarak, and he eventually fled the country. These are pretty remarkable individuals. Johanna, do you know the story? Do you remember the story of her name or what she did, what year it was? I can't remember.
No,
Yeah, but
I don't.
it's so the courage. Go ahead, yeah.
I actually have another aspect to this encouragement by the leaders, maybe, like in case of laws. We actually had a great start since our foundation of modern Turkish after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. Our founder, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, actually gave women rights to vote. before any country in the world. And there was actually a protest about this in England that say, women actually open pancards, like the signs that say, we don't have rights, like we're not different from Turkish women. Why don't we have rights? So we actually had a great start. We actually had encouragement by our leader. Our leader actually, our founder actually supported the women to write and be included in the society, the modern clothing for men and women. And yeah, we got the encouragement. We just couldn't, take advantage of it, I guess.
Right. Sure. Great.
You know, I think
Go
about
ahead,
women's
Johanna. Yeah.
rights. I think about women's rights even here in Canada and in the US and North America. We haven't been voting for that long. In fact, in Rotary, I think it was typically male.
That's
Up
right.
until I'm going to say like maybe like the 1950s was maybe even the 1960s when we had the first female Rotarian in place. But having said all of that, even the North American woman can tell you, most of us can tell you, if you are working as a, let's say, a permanent member, let's say, of an organization, you're not making as much as your male counterpoints. You're just not.
Yeah.
And you are removed from conversations willingly or unwillingly because the reality is that there's still what we call little boy clubs.
Yeah.
And so there's a male focus. And it's hard to break into those sessions and it's hard to break into that area. I for everyone there, I have an 18-year-old son at home. He actually goes to Durham College. And he came to me last week and he said, "Hey mom, do you know that females make on average 20% less than their male counterparts?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do." And he said, "Well, how did you beat that?" I'm like, "I just opened up my own company because I got tired of it." And that's when I started. I was like, you know what? I'm done with that craziness. No, I will make per hour what I'm supposed to be making, and I will be quite happy with that because I can know I can deliver on that, and then I'll be paid the exact amount that I should be. And then at least I have skin in the game and I have a say.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm looking at the clock as well. I want to make sure that we let Johanna go when I said more or less we would. So it's time to
Mm.
hear something about her. Okay. So Johanna, and then we. Oh, excellent! Look at this.
Hey,
No tech breakdown. So do you see Johanna
good.
on the big board? Do you see? Thank you, Richie. So we
That's good.
have joining the class right now. This is great. And I will just read this out loud and then you will know. So Johanna, you can see on the big board? Yeah.
I can see her face. Let's
Okay.
put it
Well, I'm
that
going to
way.
read. Richie has done a little digging from Wikipedia. We'll go from Wikipedia for now, and we'll accept that this is true. We're not going to do any big critical thinking about the quality of the information, but it's looking pretty good. Okay. Yeah. Most of it. Okay. So I'm going to get Richie to help me with the name. Wangari. Do you want to say in the microphone again? And then we'll read Wangari.
So it's pronounced Wangari Maathai.
Wangari Maathai.
Yeah.
Thanks. Wangari Maathai. She was born in 1940. Unfortunately, she's no longer with us. She died in 2011. Yeah. She was a Kenyan social, environmental, and political activist who founded the Green Belt movement. Are you able to read from?
Yes.
Go ahead and read it. Okay. Yeah.
So so essentially, she's a political activist who funded the Green Belt movement, an environmental, non-governmental organization focused on planting trees, environmental conservation, and women's rights. In 2004, she became the first African woman to win the Nobel Peace Prize. Um, excuse me. Yeah. So
She'll come back.
she's she's a national hero from back home, and she's one of the leading figures for women's rights. Today in Kenya, there's a lot of NGOs that were founded or were inspired by her acts back in the 20th century, in the early 90s. And we as Kenyans know her as a resilient figure because she went against a very tyrannical dictator called President Moy.
And probably a male,
Yeah, male.
female,
Absolutely.
man. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely a man. Yeah, this is the kind of leader who used to torture and assassinate his opponents. So she went up against a very brutal dictator, and her efforts managed to save a lot of parks. I know for a fact there's a park I visited in Nairobi, very beautiful park, called Karura Forest.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's right in the middle of the city, and it's kind of what makes Nairobi really special because it's the capital city that has wildlife as well in the city. So those such efforts were made by such people in the past. Because if it wasn't for her, like big business would have just come and
Sure. Yeah.
set up apartment buildings or whatever they wanted to in those. Well, it's located right in the middle of the city.
In the middle. Wow.
Yeah.
It's a great example, Richie. In so many levels. Anything else you want to add?
I know that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Well,
Excellent.
the only thing I'm going to say in response to that is that well-behaved women rarely make history.
That's a good. Ryan, do you want to write that down? Well-behaved women rarely make history.
And thank God.
Yeah.
It's
So
a
for
shame that
all-
she passed away, but she sounds like a phenomenal woman.
Yeah. I'm gonna bring. I'm just gonna bring that. You know, well-behaved, well-behaved women rarely make history. Okay. Speaking of well-behaved, Johanna, please tell us about
Me.
something that happened and why I have chosen it as an
Certainly.
example for the students in terms
Okay.
of mental and physical grit. Please
I,
go
I
ahead.
definitely will. Yeah, no, absolutely. So to give you a little bit of a background class on the event on Friday night, somehow it let it drop. My friend Hans, who was leading this musical initiative, let it drop that I used to be heavily involved in music. And Lon gave me this very inquisitive kind of glance, and I was like, "Oh no, here we go." And sure enough, he asked me, and I said, I said there. It seems like another lifetime ago, and certainly it was. That I actually used to be a concert pianist. I was a professional musician. I had a full functioning piano studio. I played, I taught, I taught theory, I taught piano, I played the flute, I played church, I was a church organist, played at galas and events, and I played all over the place. And then the other thing as well is that I was also a varsity figure skater. So when I did my undergraduate at York University, I was actually on the varsity figure skating team. Now, you're maybe like between the 18, I don't know what year this is that you're teaching here, Lon, but you're
Wh-
probably anywhere, but most notably, I think between 18 to 22, maybe
Who,
23.
me? I'm between
No,
18 and
not
22.
sure.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. More or less. Yes, more or less.
The
18
students.
to 18 to 22. Jamie's in that range too. 29.
There we go.
Okay.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Sure.
So when I was 25, I actually had a car accident, and I didn't just have a simple fender bender. I actually had a major car accident with an 18 wheeler that I should have never have walked away from. And just to give you a point in perspective, when I called my insurance company and they said, "Well, can you find a license plate to like show to us?" And I said, "Well, it's kind of molded to the engine." And they said, "Well, can you show us a picture?" And I'm like, "Well, there's no front of the car. There's only the trunk." So I should have never have walked away from that accident, but I did. But what it meant instantly that my life was over. So I was 25. I was literally like 2 or 3 months away from graduating in university, and completely done. Like my life as I knew it was over. I had planned to skate my way through Europe as well as to play and to teach. That is what I planned to do after graduation, and instantly it was gone. And when I say my injuries are extensive, I had a brain injury, I had whiplash, I had debilitating migraines to deal with that I still get today. I was seeing in color. Sorry, no, I wasn't seeing in color. I meant to say I'm seeing in black and white. I couldn't recognize letters. I couldn't recognize numbers. And I had a facial laceration that required 5 plastic surgeries afterwards, but initially took about 200 stitches to put my face together again, because it was kind of, I was hit pretty hard, like from here all the way through my eye to this corner and all the way back. And to this day, I still don't have sensation fully in this section of my face. So, and that was just the start. I had a broken wrist, lacerations on my liver, knees, ankles, everything was impacted. There was no way I was skating again. There was no way I was playing again. Um, and so I naturally just sat there and thought, well, what do you do? Well, you know what? I studied to be a geographer. I'm working at the police force. I'll go into artificial intelligence because that's what I do. And that's how I got my start. I actually turned around. I went to work in criminology for the police force, which eventually led to my work in fraud intelligence for CIBC Visa, which then led me, so on and so forth, many years later into being a project director. And yet here I am doing artificial intelligence again. uh, so, you talk about that grit and perseverance and changing tactics and the way that you do things. Yeah, it's a meandering path. You never know what's going to happen to you. God forbid something like that happens to you. And it's not about, I always say this, and I said this to Lon too, it's not about how hard you fail. It's about how you get up and keep on presenting yourself to move forward. You can't let it define you. You just have to keep on going. Just keep on looking forward. Because if you look backwards, you might just cry too much. You're just like, you know what? Okay, I can't do anything about it. Let's move forward because I can impact that. And so I think that's the attitude that I took. It certainly changes your perspective on things. There's no question. But Lon wanted me to share that with you today, to give you a little bit of perspective. So when you hear all the things that I've done,
Right.
it's because I don't think of it as anything being finite. My mind is completely open up to the possibilities. That's a huge component of this leadership as well. It's just opening yourself up to those possibilities. Because when I thought my life was over, I sat there and I thought, wait a second, it's not. I can do so many other things. Let's just take those things, flip the switch, and flip the directive, and flip the perspective, and keep on marching forward. And so I think that's what I really came here to say. Really, what Lon wanted me to
Well, there's,
articulate to him.
I want this to definitely land with the students in terms of right in their bones, I hope, not just in their brains. But as Robertson Davies said, he was one of our great Canadian novelists. He wrote a series of books, Fifth Business and The Manticore, and had been a professor as well. Um, you know, uh, he always talked about this idea that we must always be prepared to look ahead in spite of everything. And I also remember this wonderful line where he said, everything that matters is what's bred in the bones.
Mhm.
You want to learn, you got to feel it in your bones. And so think for a moment of what Johanna has just shared with us. Johanna, I thank you for sharing that, with all the students and with the online students and students watching the recording later. We have something like 40 students registered for just this class at Durham College, and a lot of them watch the recordings later and they write reflections. So I'm sure I'll be hearing about this. Before we let Johanna go with this story, is there anything any of you would like to say at this point or ask of her? And then we're going to continue exploring this question of when will we not need a Women's Day? That is really going to be the question that we're going to work on together. When will we not need a Women's Day? But it's just going to be all men doing this because Madiha has gone to an event outside. So, it's going to be and Johanna won't be here to give us that
No.
perspective. So let's check in the cosmos online. Burhan or Nathan, is there anything any of you would like to ask or no? Let me bring in the live chat for a second and see if there's anything there. Nathan, Burhan, please jump on your microphones if there's something you would like to say or ask at this point. If not, just put it in the live chat and we will take it up shortly.
No, I think it's all good here.
Yeah, great, Burhan. Thank you. Anything here? We're going to have lots of time to work on this together in the men's club. The boys club. Yeah, that's right.
I know that you do, that you're going to be doing your self-reflection in class,
Yes.
but I encourage you, if your mothers are still alive, if your sisters are still alive, have a conversation with them, a very frank conversation about what has shaped and formed them to be the way that they are today. I think you might be surprised by the answers. And it's not so much about, and the way that I see this, and the way a lot of women see this, it's not so much about about women and men. It's about allyship for either gender. How do we bring the two of them together that we support each other? It's not about, hey, I'm a female and I only want to be female, or the boys are going to be with the boys. Like, how do we support each other? Because that's a really critical piece here. Because women, regardless of what age they are, or where they live in the world, we all have very common things that have been happening to us, and we're socialized from a very early age to think differently. So I recognize that, and certainly, excuse me, promote that, thinking about what you can do to have those conversations with your mothers and sisters. Sorry, I have a cold. Apologies.
I have a question. One question I'd like to ask you, Johanna. Then we'll let you go. Okay.
Yes, of course.
I'm not going to name any names right now, but I'm simply going to say that there is a force in the world right now of some angry men in many countries. Some have called them crybabies. I would include myself among them. That these men who seem to be filled with a lot of anger and hate are just crybabies. Johanna, how did you stop crying?
How did I stop crying?
Yeah.
I think
You said you look back and you stop. You'll keep, if you keep looking back, you're always crying. Those are your words, if I remember. So how did you stop crying? Because I look around the world today and I see so many angry men crying, babies, can't grow up. And here we have a woman who stopped crying. How did you do that?
I think you reach deep within yourself and that you realize that there is a greater power. It starts internally. It can't happen externally. It starts internally.
Huh.
If you look too much in the past, you become very depressive. If you look too far in the future, you become very anxious. You have to become very grounded and be very honest with yourself about who you are and what value you can provide. It's not to say that you can't be sad or introspective, or whatever it is, or looking back or anything towards in the future. It's not saying that. It's just simply saying that you stop crying because you realize that there are far better things on the horizon, that there's far more to work through, that there's far more to give and to bring back. Now, presumably not everybody's the same, but if you're one of those types of individuals that wants to make an impact, that at the end of your life, God forbid, you want to say that you've turned over every single rock possible, that you've shut no doors, that's what will propel you forward. That's what stops you from crying, from looking back. You just think of the possibilities that are open to you.
Johanna, Richie? Well, Johanna, I want to thank you. Could we give Johanna a great round of applause? Burhan as well, Nathan, please.
Thanks, guys.
I want to thank you, Johanna, for giving these these invaluable life lessons to the other gender today. And we are
Yeah.
now going to the other side, the men. And is there anything else you would like to say before we unfortunately will have to let you go, or you have to go?
No, just good luck with all of your studies, everyone. I hope I run into you on campus someday. I know that Lon's in that room over there, but I'm commonly on campus, so maybe I'll run into you sometime. And don't be afraid to say hello because I can't see your faces. I can only see your little heads. But good luck with everything and good luck with all your studies.
And look at this. She has a cold.
Yeah.
She's smiling. She didn't she didn't send me a text and
No,
say, "I can't do it." She didn't cry. Maybe she did, but she doesn't anymore.
no.
And anyways, take care, Johanna. See
Yeah,
you
thanks so
around,
much,
okay?
Lon.
Yeah,
Thanks so
all right.
much, everyone. Have a great
Okay.
day.
Yep.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Okay, so I'm gonna bring everybody back into the room here, and, I'm gonna make a suggestion. Um They have been. They've been frozen since last week, Ryan. Um, I actually have an important meeting that I have to prepare for at noon, and I have to get to my office, and then I have a class at 1. I'm going to suggest that we hold off on having some of the discussion till next class. We can review this. We can have a little bit of discussion now, but we should end in 5 minutes. Okay? Is that okay? Are you good with that? And I think that I don't think it needs to be reinforced, but I'll reinforce anyways. What she just said was priceless stuff, and I can speak from my own personal experience as well about crying. The more you look forward, the more you see all the possibilities. The more you keep dwelling on what is happened in the past, it's just cry, cry, cry. Get angry, angry, angry. Get hateful, get a weapon, and start shooting because you hate the world. We have a lot of that right now. But if we can open ourselves to the future, I think you've seen what can happen. Is there anything you'd like to say before we conclude, just for the sake of having it on the recording for the students watching the recordings? Is there anything we've missed in terms of understanding what we started with today, which is Johanna was our guest, and I told you she was going to teach us something about mental and physical grit and how that will help with leadership. Jamie? I think Jamie can give us a final word. Go ahead.
How about a word?
Yeah, final word.
I was gonna ask actually if anyone watched the Barbie movie.
Oh, okay. I did. Certainly.
There's
Did
a-
anyone watch Barbie? My wife,
It's
enjoyed
a
it.
great movie. I actually
Yeah,
do
it is a
recommend
great movie.
watching
Yeah.
it.
Okay. But tell us
But-
why you brought it up.
There is without giving too much away, I suppose, if you're gonna watch it. But the women in Barbie Land get sort of taken over by the men because the roles are reversed in that
Yeah.
world essentially. Men are subjugated, women are like, yeah. So to get them out of their stupor, one of the Barbies or whatever, one of the girls, she goes on this rant on the double standard of women and how if they are assertive, they're more of a
Bitch.
okay. I
I would
wasn't sure if
say,
I'm allowed to
okay,
swear on this right
yeah.
now, but
Yeah, you're
well, they're a bitch.
Yeah, right.
right?
We can't
Um,
stand it. It's the assertive woman. We're not able to deal with it, and we just say that's bitch.
you've got to be subservient and strong. You've got to be nice, but something else, right? There's men have this total double standard for them.
Yeah.
But for like
Men.
if a man takes care of their children, like, oh my God, he's the greatest person in the world. Can you believe it? It's expected of a woman.
And if he's
You've got to have a
assertive, he's
full-time
tough.
job
He's tough,
and
yeah.
you have to take care of your children. It's just unquestioned. And I just
It's great. It's a great scene. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great, and I think the delivery of that
It's
the
brilliant.
actress who gave it,
America Ferrera.
Merrick Ferrer, has been noticed for that, moment. It's a great moment. I definitely recommend. It's so clever, the movie, in what it does, and I've seen What's that? Well, I'm going to make a note. I'm going to pick it up where we left off because we have so much coming in the coming weeks. And what she's okay. Well, Ryan, come in. Okay, get it on the microphone, and then we're going to conclude with Ryan and Jamie, and I'm going to make a note here and over there. But what are we on to, Ryan?
I like that you mentioned like double standard because like I feel like it's great that we talk about all these things about like not oppressing, certain people based on like gender or races or whatever. But like we like society and the news and the media spins that up so much that like we kind of disregard the other side of that as well. Like, sure, you could look at it like, oh yeah, men have had all the power in history.
Yes.
It also comes with a lot more responsibility. So, and that's not always like, something that you want to have a ton of on your shoulder all the time, right?
Mhm.
So, and then, I know everybody in this room could probably relate to it when it's the dating time and it comes to the bill. Who's expected to pick up the bill? If you don't pick it up, you look cheap. And if
Yep,
you pick
yep.
it up, then like,
Dude, I've had so many girls pick up the bill. Doesn't even bother me.
Really?
In high school. It was Toonie Tuesdays, though, in all fairness, in Scarborough Town Center back when the theater was popular. She picked it up. I've had girls pick up the bill. I could care less.
I've had people offer to pick up, but like, do you not feel like there's a social barrier there?
I couldn't care less.
I guess it's a new thing, right?
Yeah. Well, I feel like that is more like maybe a new
But
concept.
Not to say that I don't know people who haven't felt that way.
Yeah.
My wife and I talk about it all the time where she had her ex-husband couldn't handle that she at one point made more money than he did.
Yeah.
I joked about it, even though
Yeah.
I did make more money at the time. I joked about it when we were buying a car. That almost she's like the powerhouse in this or whatever, and sales agent's like, oh my god, yeah, my wife and I, she makes more money, and I can joke about it.
Yeah.
For sure.
I don't have a job right now. She does make more money than I do.
Yeah.
I went back to school.
Change,
I-
and
like-
you go back and forth. It's give and take.
Yeah.
Give and take.
Yeah, I don't feel like there's necessarily anything wrong with those type of dynamics like either, but I think that to answer your question, Lon, like when will we no longer need a National Women's Day?
Yes, exactly.
That when basically both genders are kind of recognized as having the same amount of accountability in all areas, then that will kind of facilitate that. But until like we can accept that, like we talk about like, oh yeah, these people on the other side of the world, these people engaging in war and battle and all this stuff are so different than us. These people are monsters, Nazi. We throw all these slurs around.
Yes.
But like we still have this divide between us and women, people that we grew up in the same household with, and all these kind of different dynamics that we have with a gender that is like so closely tied in our society, that I think that when you can kind of diminish those barriers, then I don't know, you have a more peaceful world overall.
They
It's
outnumber
almost
us.
like two energies fighting right now when they're supposed to go together and work, right? So
Well, why don't we leave it there? Okay, I would love to continue this, but what I will do in our next class when we continue this is I'm going to start with an instant replay of this, of Ryan and Jamie, starting with the bill, and who pays the bill and whatever, and then we're going to pick it up and we're going to have the discussion that we meant to, and maybe we'll be able to answer the question with some good insight, which is when will we not need this kind of day. Anyways, excellent, guys. Thank you all. As always, the third reflection, I've posted the due date for that. It's on DC Connect now. The only difference in the third reflection from the second is I'm going to be asking you to provide one source, independent source, the information from it in the body of your reflection with the citation at the end in MLA or APA format. In your final assignment, which I will be posting soon, your big assignment of the semester, you will have a minimum of 3 sources to provide. So I'm getting you ready now to combine your reflection voice with research, because that's what's going to happen in your big final assignment. It's going to either be your paper you're going to write, it's going to be the podcast he's going to do, it's going to be the short documentary that he's going to do. Both of they have decided they want to do something a little bolder with this, and I'm fully supportive, but I haven't had a chance to even look at your reflections yet. I will tomorrow, okay? But they're in, and that's great. But just keep in mind that for your final assignment or reflection, you have a choice of what medium you want to do it in. Do not wait till the last minute on this one, or it will kill you. I guarantee you. If you wait until the last minute to deliver this assignment, the pain will be significant. You will feel the pain, believe me, and you don't want to. Okay? See you next week. Thanks. Okay, let me get this done. And where are we here? Extended. Oh, I can do it through here. Great, Nathan. And I'll stop the live stream.